What's up, Warriors fans? It's your main man, Max, here from Warriors Latest. And after what happened yesterday afternoon and last night, we got a lot to talk about when it comes to Dub Nation. Now, we both saw what happened yesterday afternoon. The Kevin Durant sweepstakes officially came to an end with the Rockets acquiring him. Now, we both saw what the Rockets gave up to get him, and all we can do is shake our head in disappointment because the Suns got fleeced. Now, the Rockets traded Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, the 10th overall pick in this week's draft, as well as 5 future first-round picks for Durant. And all I can say is, had the Suns waited until July 1st, they would have gotten a much better package from the Dubs. I mean, we look at what could have been offered for Kevin Durant. It would have been Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, Buddy Hield, Pods, and maybe even a first-round pick to go along with it. Yet the Suns wanted to jump the gun and take the best offer they could find before the draft instead of the best overall offer. But the bigger problem with that deal is not that the Warriors didn't get Durant, it's that the Rockets got bigger. And I mean bigger. Now we look at that lineup. You've got a 6'3" Fred VanVleet at the 1. You've got a 6'9" Amen Thompson at the 2. You've got a 6'11" allegedly Durant, because I still think he's 7 foot at least, at the 3. You've got Jabari Smith Jr., who's around 6'10" at the 4, and then you've got a 7-footer at the 5 with Alperen Sengun, or Şengün, however you pronounce it. And to add on, they have big men like Steven Adams and Cam Whitmore off the bench, and that just makes it scary. Now, we both know that the Warriors have owned the Rockets in the playoffs these past 10 years, and this dates back to the initial run of the dynasty in 2015, when the Warriors beat the Rockets in the conference finals, when it was the original big three of Steph, Clay, and Dre versus James Harden and Dwight Howard, back when he was good and not just a journeyman bouncing around the league. And that was a good one. However, the next year, they played him again, and the Warriors handled business because they were the 73-9 Warriors in that first round. And if you may remember, J.B. Bickerstaff was actually the coach of that Rockets team in 2016. How about that? And we fast forward a few years, that Mike D'Antoni team for the Rockets with Chris Paul and James Harden. Now, that was a good team, got them to 7, but the Warriors won out. And the same thing happened this season. Warriors won in 7, but the biggest red flag of that series is the fact that the Warriors were up 3-1 after 4 games and should have closed it out in Game 5, but they weren't able to. And because these Rockets had that length and that athleticism and that youth, they were able to force it to 7 before the Warriors' experience pushed them over the top. Now, with Durant on the Rockets, I'm not 100% certain that the Warriors would be able to make it 5 for 5 in the playoffs should they meet again moving forward, whether it be next postseason or the postseason after that. Because after the next 2 postseasons, the Warriors' window is completely closed and it's time to build for the future. But in the next 2 postseasons, they're going to have to face the Rockets at least once. And that concerns me because, look, if the Rockets are able to come back from a 3-1 deficit with the lack of experience they have, now that they have a 2-time finals MVP in Kevin Durant, I don't think that playoff experience is going to help them overcome in the playoff series should they run into each other. On top of that, the Warriors' lack of length is going to hurt them in the long run, because if they continue with the team that they're as it's constructed, they're not going to find a way to get through some of these better teams. And on top of that, we saw what happened last night. The Thunder handled business against the Pacers. And with that lineup, we know that all roads to the finals are also going to have to go through Oklahoma City. And they have that Twin Towers lineup with Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein to go along with SGA, who is a 6'6" point guard, as well as Alex Caruso, who is just that glue guy that every great championship team needs, as well as Jalen Williams, who killed it this season. And I don't know if the Warriors can get past that. Now, what do the Warriors need to do? And I've said it multiple times. They need to get bigger, they need to get better, and they need to get longer. And the Warriors' rival teams, they have the length that the Warriors don't have. Yes, the Warriors did change the paradigm 10 years ago when they became the first real jump shooting team and small ball team to win an NBA championship. And in the past 10 years, they've been to the final 6 times, winning 4. Granted, that's impressive, but if they want to win one more, they have to get bigger. Because on top of the likes of the Rockets and the Thunder, they're going to have to go through likely the Mavs, who are going to be completely retooled with the Cooper Flag, as well as probably another point guard that they're going to add while Kyrie is out next season. They're going to have to go through Joker and the Nuggets, who are a big team outright, as well as hopefully they don't have to go through, but they likely are going to go through the Timberwolves. And after Steph went down this postseason, we saw what happened when they didn't have Steph. They couldn't hit water falling out of a boat, and they couldn't match up with the likes of Rudy Gobert. Now, where are they going to do this? We know they're going to do this primarily in free agency, because their biggest trade asset is Jonathan Kuminga right now. And as the market starts to heat up, things are going to heat up as well for the team in terms of finding the best deal available. Now, we've seen the Heat are interested now that they lost out on Kevin Durant, and the Bulls are interested because they need to find ways to move forward since things didn't work out with that initial let's call it a big buy money dynasty, where they signed Lonzo Ball for a ton of money. They brought in DeMar DeRozan, and combining them with Zach LaVine, they were one of the best teams in the East. Unfortunately, once Lonzo went down, the wheels fell off, and they need to find guys that fit alongside of Josh Giddey when they do eventually decide to re-sign him. Now, where is that going to take place outside of free agency, since we have to wait till July 1st? Well, as I've said, negotiations are going to begin at the draft, and even though the Warriors only have the 41st pick, they should invest in some good players, or a good player. And that player, as I've mentioned before, is Hanson Yang. And while he may be a project, he still is a 25-12 guy in the CBA, which is impressive. Granted, they haven't had a good guy come out of the CBA since Yi, and before that, it was Yao. So I'm not really counting, but because of the large Asian population within the Bay Area, I do get the feeling he's going to become a fan favorite instantly. And next thing you know, he's coming off the bench and possibly even starting in his first year. And as a 7-2 center, I am perfectly fine with that. But on top of just drafting a guy at 41st, the Warriors need to be aggressive in attacking any trade that they can be involved in, even if it's just a facilitator. Getting that opportunity to bring in players to possibly trade later is going to help the Warriors in the long term. Say, all right, let's give you an example. Say there's a good trade for pods. You could bring in some extra pieces that you could trade during the July period in a sign and trade with Kuminga. Boom, there's one thing. Say, all right, you got a good trade for Buddy Hield. All right, boom, you can trade that, get some extra pieces, trade him in July. But starting those negotiations during the draft is going to be essential, because that's when the movement really starts, and that's where the relationships really come in handy. Because you might get a good deal and not even know about it, and that's what the Warriors are very good at doing. Finding those right deals that fit them and finding those ways to make the team better, even though you don't think about it in the beginning, the dividends really show during the season. And we're not looking for a great team on paper. We want them to be the best team that plays the best together, because that's the team that always wins the title. And it's, as I said, it's going to start at the draft and then go through free agency when they re-sign and trade Kuminga. Because the bottom line is, if the Warriors want the rings, they're going to have to bring in the bigs. And it doesn't matter where they get those bigs as long as they bring them in. Because they need to, like I said, they need to compete with the likes of Anthony Davis. They need to compete with the likes of Joker. They need to compete with the likes of Rudy Gobert, the likes of Chet, the likes of Hartenstein, the likes of Kevin Durant, the Alperen Sengun. They need to compete with those guys. And the way the roster is constructed now, they can't. So as long as they get bigger and as long as they get better and they get that size, I have no doubt that in this offseason they will become that championship contender that they were meant to be this season, but because Steph went down, things didn't go as planned. And for Warriors Latest, I'm your main man, Max, and as always, go Dubs.